everyone, welcome to our video tutorial for this cat kerchief. So we hope you enjoy this tutorial. Please like, share and subscribe and hope to catch you soon. Thanks. Bye. Bye. Thanks, baby. Good job. Okay, so to make this kerchief you'll need some yarn. I'm going to recommend that you tend towards the lighter weight yarns. This one is a 100% acrylic in this graduated colour pattern. You can use any yarn, a wool, a cotton, depending on whether you're making it for a winter or a summer project. Yeah, but it wouldn't suit best a lighter weight yarn. I think this would be around a 2 weight, so it would suit best a lighter weight yarn. I'm using a 3.5mm crochet hook for my main kerchief, and then for the ties I'm going to use a 3mm just to make the ties a little bit thinner. That's just an option, you don't need to do that. You could just use your main hook for the ties as well. You'll need some scissors, a darning needle, optional stitch marker. It may be useful, you may not need it at all, but if you've got one on hand then keep it close. And a tape measure to measure the circumference of your cat's neck. Now with regards to sizing, this pattern will fit most cats within a standard small to a standard large size. That would be about a 20 centimetre up to about a 30 centimetre sizing. But this is readily adjustable to suit larger and smaller cats. So I'll talk about that a bit more later. Okay, so the stitches and techniques that you need to make this kerchief, you can see this one here that I've made up previously in this darker colour palette. It's the same yarn as the one I'm using in the tutorial today, but it's in this darker graduated colour palette. So you'll need to know how to slip knot onto your hook, how to create a chain, how to double crochet, half double crochet, single crochet, slip stitch, and how to weave in your ends. So beginner friendly, super easy project. If you need to brush up on any of those techniques before you get started, then please do. Otherwise, come along with me and let's start crocheting. Okay, so there's just one thing I want to clarify about the sizing of the kerchief, which I neglected to mention in the filming of the video. You'll see when we get to it, once you start creating your tie, you'll come to the end, you'll chain the length that you need for your tie, and what I recommend that you do is just make sure that that's enough to go around your cat's neck and tie. Okay, so to do that you would just place the kerchief at the center point of their chest and just do a quick check that it's long enough. Now if you need to chain longer than what I mentioned in the video, please do. I say to go up to 60, but you could certainly go longer than that. And just make sure at that point that you've got long enough to tie around your cat's neck. So forgive me when I get to that point, I didn't quite make that clear. So I just wanted to drop in those couple of notes here. So let's get started. Okay, so to get started, take your main hook size and slip knot onto your hook. Oops. However you do that, lots of different techniques for slip knots. So however you tie onto your hook, go ahead and then chain 4. 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so locate that first chain that you made, so the one furthest away from your hook, and you're going to insert 2 double crochets into that chain. So that's 1. To do a double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so just a reminder, if you're not sure about these basic stitches, please check out another YouTube video or check out any resource that you've got to brush up on these techniques. So chain 2 to move on, and then back into that same chain place 3 more double crochets. That's 2 and 3. Okay, so that completes row 1. Now just to give you an idea of the context that we're in, oops, just to give you an idea of the context, we're starting at this point here. So right in the center here. Okay, and then we're going to work out and create the kerchief. So my hook came out there, so I'll just insert that back in. Now we're going to move on to row 2. So chain 3, turn, and then, as I said, you're going to start each row with this little cluster of 3, including the chain. So place 2 more double crochets into that first stitch. So we're counting the chain as a stitch. Chain 1. And then from your previous row, locate that chain space. So that was that chain 2 space that we did in row 1. So locate that space, and then we're going to put 3 double crochets into that chain space. So not into the chain, not into the stitch, but right into the space. And 3. Once again, chain 2, and that's going to create our chain space for the next row. And then we're going to move, so we're going to start moving down this other side here. So yarn over, place 3 more double crochets back into that same chain space. And 3. Chain 1. And then locate the top of your chain. So that chain that you made in row 1, that chain of 3, locate the top of your chain. Oops, I've got to yarn over first. And place 3 double crochets into the top of that chain. So that can be a little bit tricky to locate, but try and locate both loops of that top chain. That's 1 and 2 and 3. So that completes row 2. So you might be starting to see the pattern emerge now. So you can see we're just going to work back and forward, up and down each side to create our kerchief. So moving on to row 3, chain 3 and turn. 2 more double crochets back into that first stitch. 1 and 2. Chain 1. Now into that chain space work 3 double crochets. So that's the chain 1 space from the previous row. Work 3 double crochets in there. Chain 1. Now find that chain space at the peak of your kerchief there. That's that chain 2 space. And then do exactly the same as you did in the previous row. So 3 double crochets into that 2 chain space. Chain 2. 3 more double crochets back into that same chain space. And 3. Oops. Chain 1, 3 double crochets into that chain 1, next chain 1 space, 1 and 2 and 3, chain 1, and then locate once again the top of that top chain of your previous row. Oops, I always forget to yarn over for this one. So try to insert into both loops if you can. It'll just make things a little bit neater. And then place 3 double crochets into the top chain. So you can see this pattern emerging now. So you're going to just work backwards and forwards, increasing each row, just as we've done. Okay, so here's where you can decide how big you want your kerchief to be. So we've done 3 rows, and we're going to go for a total of 6 rows. So you can adjust this to be, you know, if you had a tiny little animal, then you could stop here. You might want to go probably an extra row, but in theory you could stop wherever you want to stop. But if you're coming with me and making the same size as I'm making, then we're going to continue for 3 more rows. So chain 3 and turn, yarn over, insert 2 double crochets into that first stitch, chain 1, 3 double crochets into that chain 1 space, 2 and 3, chain 1, move along to the next chain space, 3 double crochets, 1 and 2 and 3. I just love using these graduated yarns that change colour as I move along. Chain 1, locate that peak chain space, and as before, yarn over, 3 double crochets into that space, chain 2, 3 more double crochets into that same chain space, 2 and 3, chain 1, 3 double crochets in the next chain space, 2 and 3, chain 1 and 3 double crochets in the next chain space. Finishing off row 4 together, and then I'm going to let you work to the size of the kerchief that you want. So chain 1, locate that top chain. Like I said, sometimes it's a little bit tricky. Just do your best. It's good to use this light yarn that makes it much easier to see. Okay, both loops of that chain. There it is. And 3 double crochets into that chain. 2 and 3. Okay, so now you've got the pattern. Just continue on for however many rows you want. So I'm going to do 2 more rows, and that's going to be the size of my kerchief. But if you're making this for a larger cat, you could go perhaps to 7 rows, maybe 8 rows even. Might start to alter the pattern slightly if you go much bigger than that. But you know, for a large cat, you could certainly go to 7 or 8 rows. I'm going to go 2 more rows. So continue along as you are, repeating that same pattern, and I'll meet you back once I'm at the end of my row 6. Okay, I'm at the end of my row 6, and I've actually realized that I need to do an extra row to make the same size as the one I made previously. I miscounted the rows. Sorry, there's 7 rows to make this standard size. So I'm going to go ahead and do 1 more row, and I apologize for that. So if you've done up to row 6 and you're happy with the sizing, you can stop there. If you've got a smaller cat, that might be the size that you want to stay at. Otherwise, come with me to the 7th row, which is the standard size of this kerchief. And if you want to, you can go up to 8, maybe even 9 rows. It's up to you on the sizing with that. But yeah, sorry about that. And come with me, do an extra row for the standard size, and I'll see you at the end of my row 7. Okay, so I finished my row 7, and that completes the main part of the kerchief. So now we're going to move along and create the neck area. So chain 1 here, and then we're going to place evenly spaced single crochets along the top of this neckline. So when you go into the stitches, try and go through the center of the stitches, okay, and then into the top of the row. So do the best that you can. So what I tend to do is I go into the center of the stitches or chain. So try not to go into the gaps. Oh, excuse me. Try not to go into the gaps, okay, otherwise you'll create big holes. Try and go into the center of your stitches, and then I go, so that's in the chain there, and then I go into this little space just at the top of the row and then into the stitch. So this is a double crochet into the center of the stitch and then into that little space. So it's a little bit hard for me to describe, but into the stitches or the chain and then into this little area in between. So that tends to be what I do. But it's just the whole important thing is that you just place evenly spaced single crochets along the top of this neckband area. Yeah, that wasn't in the center. So go ahead and finish off. Now when you get to the center, you can start working in your tail, which is what I'm going to do. You don't have to, you can just weave it in at the end. But if you want to work it in, you sure can. And I'll meet you when I get to the other side of this neckband, and then we're going to start creating the first tie. So I'll see you shortly. Okay, so I've worked in my tail end there as I've moved along, so I'm just going to snip off that excess. And then make sure you put a single crochet right in that last chain there. So right in the edge there. So yours will look something like that. So you've got this row of single crochets along the top here. So now you're going to, if you want to, you're going to change to your smaller hook size, which is what I'm going to do. Now this just creates slightly thinner ties that might be more aesthetically pleasing for you and easier to tie, but it's not going to make a huge difference, so you can just continue on with your larger hook. So now you're going to chain 50. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So go ahead and chain 50. Now this is where you can increase the size of your ties or decrease the size of your ties. So you could go up to 60 for a larger neck circumference, or you could go down to say 40 for a very small cat. So chain the amount that you need. For the standard sizing, 50 should be fine. Now that will vary a little bit depending on the size hook that you're using and also the yarn that you're using. But if you're using a lightweight yarn with around the same hook size that I'm using, 50 should be fine. So go ahead and chain your 50, and I'll be back once I've done mine. Okay, so I've chained my 50 there for my first tie. So just chain one extra for a turning chain. And then you're going to just slip stitch down the chain. Now this is where you might, actually before we go too far here, you might want to take your stitch marker and count 6 chains from the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So put a stitch marker in that 7th chain. Okay. Now, it's not necessary. It's easy to count 6 once you get there, so it's not necessary, but it's just an option if it helps you out. And now we'll just go back to slip stitching all the way down. There's Melba. Please excuse her moving my table. So then we're going to just slip stitch all the way down to create our first tie. So I'll meet you when I get back to the stitch marker. So the stitch marker will mark your last slip stitch. Okay, so keep slip stitching until you get to the stitch marker. Remove the stitch marker and place your last slip stitch in there, and I'll meet you when I get there myself. Okay, I'm up to my stitch marker, so I'm just going to take that out and place my last slip stitch in that chain. And now we're going to, we're just going to start to increase the height of our tie now. So in the next 2 stitches, or next 2 chains, place 1 single crochet. In the next 2 chains, place 1 half double crochet, so 1 in each of the next 2 chains. And then in the last 2 chains, place 1 double crochet. And in the last one. So now you have the option to change back to your main hook size if you want to, or you can just stay with this smaller hook. I'm going to change it up again. Just because I just like to have those slightly thinner ties. So now we're going to work along the top of our kerchief. So we're just going to place double crochets into each of those single crochets that we worked before. So double crochet into each of the single crochets along the top of the neckband, and then we're going to repeat the same process for the second tie. So once you get to the end here, we're going to chain the same amount that we did for the previous tie, and then work back using slip stitches. And yeah, just essentially repeat the process. So I'll meet you when I get back here. So keep on placing your double crochets along, 1 in each of those single crochets along the top there, and I'll see you soon. Okay, so I've worked along with my double crochets, and once again, don't forget to place a double crochet right in that last chain. Might be a little bit tricky to get that in there, but right in the edge there. And then we're going to, like I said, repeat the process. So I'm going to change back to my other hook. And I'm going to chain, once again, chain 50. So I'll see you once I've finished this tie. So just repeat the same process that you did for tie number 1, using your stitch marker or not. Remember, once you get to that 6th stitch, you'll add 2 single crochets, and then 2 half double crochets, and 2 double crochets. So I'll meet you back when I've finished my second tie, and I'll show you how to finish off. Okay, so I'm just placing my last 2 double crochets at the end of this second tie. So there's my last one. So now what we're going to do is just, so you've got your end of your tie, we're just going to slip stitch at the base of that neckband to join the second tie to the main part of our kerchief. And then yarn over, pull through, and snip off your end. And then we've just got to weave in that one tail end, and so I'm super happy since there's only one end. You may need to weave in your center end, your beginning end, depending on whether you worked it in along the top there or not. So just weaving in the tail end. So thread your darning needle and decide which is the front and which is the back of your kerchief. For me, this is going to be the back here, and then I'm just going to weave my tail end through the base of those double crochets. So you can weave it in anywhere you like, but I just find it really convenient to weave in through some of those double crochets and then weave back again, not coming back exactly where I went in. And then I'll go through one more time. Just be careful not to pull your tail too tight so you don't misshape your work. And I don't know if you can hear that, that's Melba talking to the seagulls. She's so cute. Okay, so snap off your tail end and you're done. So isn't that a lovely, quick, simple project? Super cute. As you can see, mine has turned out very, very pink, very baby pink. So it's super cute. So please send along your photos of your cat wearing his or her kerchief. I would love to see them as always. So send them along to either catventurous.community@gmail.com, or you can send them via tagging us on social media. So @catventurous.crochet. All of the details of where you can find us are in the description box below. So thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it very much, and hope to see you soon. Thanks very much. Bye. We hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please like, share and subscribe. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. 2 seconds. Please like, share and subscribe, and hope to catch you soon. Thanks. Bye. Thanks, baby. Good job. Mwah. Oh, you want to stay? You want to stay? You want to stay? No? Okay. Bye. Good girl.